Delighted to welcome back on the show UFC strawweight Jessica I. Jessica, first of all, just finished up a bit of training there. How's all with you, my friend?
It's very good. I lost you. Where'd you go?
I'm
Oh,
back
there
again
it is.
here.
Um, it's very good. I'm training super hard and ready to get myself back on a winning record.
Awesome stuff. Obviously, it's been the last two fights for you being tough. I want to get to that in a moment, but I want to get obviously big news in the mixed martial arts world. I want to get your take, and obviously you're a very accomplished boxer, and your MMA boxing is top notch. What did you assess, and how did you rate Holly Holm's performance last week against Ronda Rousey?
I mean, she executed a perfect game plan. I mean, that's really what it was. And me always, maybe being the striker that I am, when I knew that fight was originally started to take place, I knew that the game plan, it's not even that Holly's a better fighter, it's Holly was going to have a better game plan. And strikers are known to have very, very good game plans. I mean, I don't think I've ever met anybody that had an extensive boxing background that didn't have just good at making game plans, knowing how to use their punches to set everything else up.
And how did looking at you being a boxer as well, it was sort of pinpoint. Everything went to plan that Mike Winkle, John Holly had put together, and Greg and the guys. Was it as much? And you've talked about it before. You're one of the girls. You talked about in the show, and we spoke before about the psychological aspect of facing a girl like Ronda Rousey. You're one of these fighters. You concentrate on your own performance. You don't buy into what the other fighter does. Holly did that down to a T. Was that half the battle?
Yes, I think that not only when you fight Ronda, you're fighting her hype, and I think the same thing kind of got to Ronda, vice versa. I think that this time, the hype of Holly and the hype of her head kick kind of did what normally happens to Ronda's opponent happened to Ronda, and now she was coming into a point where there was this person, and I think that there was a lot going on in Ronda's world emotionally. I mean, she's got all this stuff with her mom, all this stuff with Edmund, all this stuff with Travis. I mean, females are, we fight a lot based upon our emotions. And I happen to think this time that's really kind of what grabbed it more than anything.
And being a fighter as well, we saw a lot of the fans, got on Ronda's back. And some sections of the media, I thought it was pretty disgraceful. Myself, what was your thoughts and opinions on that?
I mean, is everybody really surprised? I mean, and I hate to say this, but that's what sports are. That's sports. It's like, what happened when Superman was no longer cool? Spider-Man came out, and you have all these things like that. Like, they're always looking for something more entertaining, and it stinks. But that's what us as athletes and as fighters, we subject ourselves to, is the fact that we're also going to have the highest praise, but also the highest amount of scrutiny that there's possible. I mean, it's disgusting to kind of read it. I didn't tweet her. I didn't say anything. I mean, other than holy strikes. But I feel like at the same point, I feel like there's people who are trying to congratulate her. And then there's people that are who were never on her team. I think it's just showing the true colors of what the fans are made of, and maybe even some of these media outlets that have, they've really dogged Ronda. I mean, people that I know that are into my career and not necessarily into Ronda, the first thing that they have all said to me this week were like, man, they dropped their golden child like nothing. Like, they don't even care about her anymore. And people who aren't fans of the sport, all they know is that they're like, wow, everyone turned on Ronda real quick.
Yeah, there's a lack of loyalty, I think, across the board, and a lot of facets of the world of mixed martial arts. Do you think it's a good thing, Jessica, for the women's division? Because Ronda was obviously clearing out a lot of the ladies now. People are going to go, I can beat Holly. You're a girl, I think, it'll match up great against Holly. You obviously get a couple of wins together. You're right back in that position. It's not a good thing for the UFC because their main cash cow is gone now. We know what Ronda was for the UFC. Is it a good thing, though, for the fighters in the division?
Well, you think there's a couple of good parts about it. Number one, yet again, a gap that seems so far away from Ronda and the rest of us has been shortened. I mean, significantly. There's no gap anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? The average woman can come out there and perform and get that world title. So I am glad about that aspect of it. But at the same time, the UFC, obviously they're gonna have to promote Holly, but it's all about promotion. I mean, a prime example is look at Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor. Conor's not technically the champ, but they're promoting him like he is one of them, and promoting him like he is one of the best. And same with Paige. Paige is not the champ, but they're promoting them. And Sage, and there's these other people that are promoting. It's it's up to us as fighters to make ourselves marketable so that the UFC, even if we're not their champion, even if we're not their top level person, but we're their top level marketing. So, I mean, now they have their chance to remarket Ronda another way, but I think they're kind of in limbo right now. I don't think they know what
Mm.
Ronda's going to do, and I, hope for her sake. I've lost before in fights. I hope that she'll take it in stride and make herself better. But I've also seen fighters take losses and never came back at ever the same, ever.
Definitely. And on the UFC, they've mentioned as well, there's been talk this week again of a featherweight division for the women coming in. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know me, like obviously being a featherweight before this,
Perfect.
I messaged Sean Shelby and I was like, hey, what's up with 125? And he said, I mean, coming from Sean Shelby, he said it's never going to happen.
Okay.
And I've heard that before too, that they know that too many girls from 15 would come up and too many girls from 35 would come down. I'm that in betweener. You know what I mean? Like I'm definitely an in betweener between 25 and 35, and I think I've shown it. Like if there was a 25 division, I would definitely go down. But at 35, like no one's ragdolling me, no one's throwing
Yeah.
me around, and I mean I can honestly say I've not even out of any of my fights like walked out battered and bruised that bad. So I guess as of right now, I'm in 35, and maybe one day they'll open a 25 division, and I can go down there and dominate.
Do you think, Sean said it's not going to happen, but if you look at the situation now with the ban on the IVs as well, would it not be a perfect fit and a very sensible thing for the UFC to do in order to maybe even protect their fighters? Because we know how much, the extreme weight cuts can do damage to people's body. We saw it with Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah, you know what? Yet again, it kind of so water cutting is a bonus to weight cutting. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it shouldn't be about how much water I can cut, but how much I prepared to the weeks up to it to lose the right weight. I think that for all these years, fighters like myself, fighters that have been in the business for years, that have used IVs before and used it, like they're kind of, like we've accustomed that water cut. Like guys like Johnny who knew that, like, hey, you know what? Screw it. If I can suffer for one day, I'll still get that IV. Well, when they took that IV away, I mean, that changed that, like you said, it changed a lot of things. So I think that you're going to see people changing weight classes
Yeah.
now because of the IV ban. And I wish they wouldn't have done it. I mean, I'm one of those fighters that I've done it and I've also not done it before. So, I mean, I was fine without it this
Yeah.
last fight. I mean, but at the same time, like, I mean, there's also been times that I've cut to 25 and I needed it.
Do you think we're going to see problems, from a fighter's, standpoint? Are we going to see more problems like we saw with Johnny Hendricks? Because fighters are obviously going to try and stay around at that weight class instead of going up a weight class.
Well, you'll be able to tell based upon how many fighters you hear start having kidney stones.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
kidney problems. And you're hearing about them dropping off because of those things. And it'll happen more fight week than anything. Because, I mean, once your kidneys shut down, I mean, bottom line, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean,
Yeah. You're in
any
trouble.
fighter that has ever cut a lot of weight and cut water weight, they'll know. They'll tell you that, like, you can't mess with that pain. It's a different kind of pain. It shuts you down.
And just going back a little bit, a lot of people I spoke with Lou Giardino last night, and Lou was saying about, he thought Ronda might have taken back too much water on board with her rehydration process. Did you, did you notice anything about Ronda? Maybe her weight cut didn't go to plan, and maybe she overloaded, rehydrated too much.
I mean, you know what? I don't. I mean, you really think, like, as fighters with the heart that we have, that a little bit of extra water in our body's going to change our performance?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think so. I think it was strictly game plan. I know me personally. What we did is we did a water technique that I was doing salt and water throughout the whole night. That I even woke up in the middle of the night and drank water so that I wasn't waking up first thing in the morning and trying to guzzle it down when I'd been asleep for all that time. So we set timers. We got liters down by every couple hours on top of salt. We would do salt, pink Himalayan salt, like the rock
Yeah.
salt. So yet again, I mean, it could be, it could not be. I mean, I think really going into this, Ronda happened to not have the correct game plan, and just that particular night, Holly Holm happened to be the better fighter. I mean, we've seen it a
Mm,
million times. I mean, we've seen it where just so happened that fighter arrived on the right time.
definitely.
Except I do think Holly wins it again.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to agree with the dominant performance and fashion in which she won it. Ronda didn't seem to have a chance, right from the very start. Let's talk about you. Obviously, you're coming off, a couple of tough losses. against Judy Alpania and Misha Tate. And we spoke before. You were really confident going into those fights. We know you've overcome a lot of adversity in your life. You said to me, I think before, you've done worse things in your life than getting an octagon with someone. What can you learn? Is there anything you can take from those two defeats, Jessica?
Gosh, like there's nothing worse than making a mistake in life and you know that you have to take full
Yeah.
responsibility for it and the way that you learn from it. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing when somebody else kind of makes a mistake and you have to absorb it with them, but like I absorbed all these losses on my own because it's not my team, it's not my training, it's me. It's me not
Mm.
doing what I could or I know that I'm capable of doing. And one of the things that like I think I've continued to prove is I've never went in the octagon, regardless if it win, lose, or draw, but not put on a show and not showcased my athletic abilities. Being a martial artist, showing that I can grapple, showing I can punch, showing I can kick, and I think that unfortunately that's just a part of my story. I happen to learn the hard way, and this last loss, I didn't feel like I lost. I knew the Misha Tate. I knew that they were
Yeah.
going to count the hard punch that she landed in the first round, which yet again, it didn't rock me. It was the weirdest thing. Yes, I went down, but it was like I was like, wow, I'm on the ground. Why am I on the ground? Like it never took me out of my game, but from there, like I knew that I lost the Misha fight, but the Julie fight, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I lost that, and I felt like I kind of got screwed over a little bit. But
Mm.
I mean, it's my own fault. I have to learn to finish fights. I have to learn to execute, and I'm doing things. I'm doing things right now in my own training that's going to allow me to be the true aggressor, not be worried about anything that I don't know, when I go in there. I feel like I've kind of held back.
Yeah.
Like when I went back and watched both of my last two fights, I looked at myself and I'm like, man, why am I fighting like reserved? Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, and I think there was some things like, the UFC talked about a title shot. I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
a
The
new
pressure.
contract, and Jessica, you might get the title shot. That like I almost didn't fight to my abilities. That I just didn't. I was so scared that I was gonna lose, and then I ended up fucking losing in the long run. So it's like, like
I,
I can only learn from my mistakes, and I'm fortunate that the UFC still plans to have me in the roster, and doesn't look at me as like someone that's capable of getting cut.
yeah. It's that worrying. There's been a number of cuts lately. I think they're going to cut another 40 guys. One of our guys here, Paul Redmond, was cut yesterday after only 2 fights in the organisation. He took a short notice fight last January. I think he cut like 32 pounds to make the weight in 12 days, and he'd one fight in July, and the UFC have cut him. Obviously, that's a pressure. But was it more frustrating also against, after the Misha fight in particular, because there was a lot of sort of back and forth, especially sort of from Misha. You said the things to us, I think, before what Misha had said about you. Was that extra sort of grinding on you?
No, I don't know. None of that messed with me. I mean, and I can say this with a very open heart. Like I just don't like the person that Misha
Yeah,
is. I don't like the way she treated me the first time I ever met her when I was a non-UFC fighter. I that didn't bother me. I don't think that screwed up my game plan. I really think what screwed up my game plan and even going into these fights is that the possibility that like I could get a title shot, and that's
yeah,
all I've
yeah,
ever wanted. And it's like everything I ever wanted, like I almost screwed up for myself, and it's yet again my own fault. There's none of these chicks can get in my head. Like I could care less. When it boils down to it, I'll not know who they are in another 10 years. They won't be saying my name. I won't be saying theirs. I just take it at face value for what it's worth. But I'm learning that, and I'm growing up in MMA. I started fighting when I was, or started training when I was, just turning 19. I'm 29. Like I'm still learning things. I'm still learning about the sport. I've just been in the UFC now 2 years, and I like that I'm given a little bit of growing room, and I'm thankful that the UFC is still keeping me around.
definitely. Always enjoy watching your fights. One of the best MMA boxers out there. And Jessica, talk to me about what's next for you. Do you know? Have you heard from the UFC? Is there a timeline? Is there anything in the pipeline for you to get back in there?
I'm pushing, man. Like I've already been saying some things online, and someone else was like, Jessica, just call Bethe Correia. And I was like, well, that'd be an awesome
Yeah, it'd be a
fight,
good fight.
right? Like that would
Definitely.
be an awesome fight. She's a striker, I'm a striker, like fire plug versus fire plug. Like I would definitely do it. And I know the shows that they have coming up is, Boston, they got Jersey, and
Vegas, do you know
Australia
what I mean?
and London. I mean, I'd love to get on those cards. I'd love to get on all of them. I mean, whatever one they want to let me on, but I've been kind of like itching. I was like, do I just go out on Facebook or like Twitter and just be like, screw it, Jess? Like, just be like, bitch, like, this isn't a call out. This is, hey, let's make some money and put on a show. You know what I mean? Like, why do we got to call it a call out? Let's just fight.
So
Let's make Sean Shelby's job a little easier.
so Betch is the one you want then, yeah? That's the fight
I mean,
you're taking on.
anybody in the top 10. You know what I mean? Like anybody in the top 10, I definitely would love to fight.
Absolutely awesome.
Someone I've not fought yet, and someone that's going to give me a chance to showcase my abilities.
Oh, definitely. That's a fight I think everyone would like to see. London, we'd like to see you over in, on this side of the pond, definitely. You were supposed to come to Dublin, Jess. We missed you in Dublin.
I know. Freaking Stipe, when he got hurt, like,
Yeah.
and then they were like, oh, well, we won't send you. We don't want you to go alone. I was like, oh, man. I would have loved to go. I thought it would have been so cool.
Hopefully we'll get you over in London soon enough. Jessica, it's always a pleasure having the show. I really do appreciate it. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to on the social networks, where can the guys find you?
Thank you for having me on, and you can find me at Jessica Evil Eye on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Jessica, absolutely appreciate the time as always. It's been an absolute pleasure again, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you over this side of the pond in London soon.
You rock, man. Thank you so much. I hope I get to come over there too.